Have you ever felt that you're really busy but not really getting anything done? You're not alone. In fact, according to a survey conducted by Team Prowess in the UK, around 80% of employees do not feel they are fully productive throughout the 8-hour workday. So today we're diving into how you can stop being constantly busy and actually become truly productive at work. Imagine transforming those hectic, overwhelming days into efficient, focused, and rewarding ones. By the end of this video, you'll have actionable steps to stop being busy and actually boost your productivity. This will definitely help you stand out in your company and hopefully rekindle the passion for working. Hola amigos, I'm Diego, a software engineer working in London. And if you're interested in reclaiming your time from digital distractions and supercharging your productivity, make sure you subscribe and join the team. But before we jump in, let's define the word productivity, because I think a lot of this toxic hustle culture comes from the fact that we are completely misinterpreting the term productivity. Productivity is all about getting more important things done in less time. So not only being efficient, but ruthlessly prioritizing what you work on. Productivity has nothing to do with doing more and more and more things like many of us have been led to believe. So if you feel like you're busy all of the time, but you don't actually feel productive, there's a bunch of things that you're doing that you probably shouldn't, and many of them could be either eliminated, automated, or delegated. So now that we're on the same page about productivity, let's get into it. The first thing I would recommend is to understand the difference between shallow work and deep work. So spending hours during the day attending meetings, doing administrative tasks, responding to email is the real trap of shallow work, because you get to the end of the day and you do not feel you got anything done. Research from the Anatomy of Work Global Index showed that knowledge workers spend up to 60% of their time every single day involved in shallow work. And shallow work is categorized as meetings, email, admin tasks, communications, the management of digital tools, and even just constant reporting. And deep work is completely different. It can include things like writing code, doing research and analysis, doing some strategic planning, or even skill development, things that require your mind to be fully invested in the activity. So for me, understanding the difference between shallow work and deep work is an incredibly important foundation to eliminate that being busy and actually becoming productive. The second thing I would recommend is to analyze what you're spending your time on. So I would definitely recommend that you do a time audit. So sit down and analyze exactly what you're spending your time on during 1 week. I did this a while ago when I was working for a tech startup in California, and I found out that almost 30% of what I was doing was shallow work, and a lot of it was frankly quite useless. And this discouraged me at first because of the amount of time that I was spending on these menial, monotonous, and repetitive tasks. But it gave me a lot of hope because now I knew what was important and what wasn't, and I could prioritize for the most important things. And there's some really cool tools to be able to create this time audit. One of them is Toggle, T-O-G-G-L. I'll leave them all linked down below, where you can track the time that you spend on each activity, and at the end of the week understand. And once you sit down to analyze this time audit, be sure to be ruthless about what you categorize as shallow work and deep work, and finally decide what tasks should be eliminated, automated, or delegated in that order. Number 3, I would recommend to do one thing, the most important thing, early in the morning. So many productivity gurus out there, like Tim Ferriss, for example, recommend tackling the most important thing early on in the day because it sets a positive tone for the rest of your day. And I first came across this concept in the book Make Time, which is one of my favorite productivity books of all time, where they talk about the daily highlight, where you should focus every day on one single highlight, which is the most important task that you need to get done. There's also another book called The One Thing that delves deeper into this strategy. Make sure you read those books to truly understand the importance of focusing on that most important thing as early as possible when you have the highest amount of energy and mental strength to be able to tackle it. So what are the benefits of a daily highlight, of doing that important thing early in the morning? Well, it frees up the rest of the day and gives you a sense of accomplishment and peace and reward that you couldn't achieve any other way. Not only that, early in the morning you should block out time where your teammates know that you're completely unavailable, perhaps go to a private meeting space, or even use the construction worker earmuffs that I've recommended on the channel in the past to completely block out noise and make sure you engage in deep work and are able to finish that important task as early as possible, as effectively as possible. And then for the rest of the day, you can be a little more distracted and deal with admin tasks and the other things that will inevitably come flying your way. Number 4, I would recommend planning and breaking down tasks. I have a pretty funny story of my experience at the coding bootcamp last year, and it was that early in the mornings, we used to have toy problems. These toy problems were little coding puzzles that we would do early in the morning to just get ready for the day. And when we first started doing them, most of us were completely lost because a lot of these puzzles were actually very difficult, and we would just be racking our brains for minutes and minutes and minutes trying to understand what on earth was going on. And one day, in a particularly difficult puzzle, I lifted my head and looked at one of my colleagues, and it seemed that he was sleeping. And I thought, no, this can't be, I have to ask him afterwards. And when we finished the toy problem and I didn't get the answer, I went to him and asked him, how come you were sleeping? Weren't you just stressed and trying to figure out the solution? And he said, yeah, I got it. It was perfect. And I said, how'd you get it? You were napping. And he said, no, I wasn't napping. I just took a step back. Instead of diving headfirst into coding, I took a step back, relaxed, closed my eyes, and tried to plan out my solution to the response. So he took a few minutes, had the patience to step back, take those few minutes, plan what he was going to achieve and what solution he was going to implement. And then when it got to actually coding, he already had the answer. He already knew what he had to do and he just had to execute. While most of us were stuck there smashing our heads on the keyboards trying to get an answer just by brute force. And that experience really impacted me and showed me the importance of planning and breaking down tasks to make your solution as effective as possible. So whenever you're at work and you have something to get done, make sure you take 15, 20 minutes, whatever time you need to plan that task and break down every single step you need to take from zero to the actual objective. The fifth thing I would recommend is setting goals. This is not something that I've been very good at in the past, but I'm trying to get better now. And just this study from the Dominican University claiming that the mere act of setting goals can improve work performance by up to 30% should make us all really focus on actually setting goals, effective goals. And goals are not only important because they give you something to work towards, but because they also provide not only yourself, but your team with personal accountability along the journey of accomplishing the things you need to accomplish. And these goals you should have daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. Break down these goals, set them, make sure you know what steps you need to take to achieve the goal, as we mentioned in the planning and breaking down phase. When you know that you're working towards your goal and the steps you need to take, the progress makes sense and you're not wasting time on those busy activities as we already mentioned. So breaking down those tasks, setting goals, incredibly important. The sixth thing I want to mention is that email is mostly busy work. The average knowledge worker spends around 28% of the day just going through email. That's just sad. Like, reading those statistics just make me a little sad. So there's a ton of tips for dealing with email more effectively, such as batching, using email filters. But I wanted to recommend a couple of things and then leave you a resource that you should really go through, which is a step-by-step guide of how to achieve that mythical inbox zero and not be burdened by your email inbox every single day. So first thing I would recommend is that you don't check email until after 12 p.m. if you can get away with it. The second thing I would recommend is that you check email as few times as possible during the day, as few times as you can get away with. This is incredibly important. And the third thing is I'm going to leave a resource down below by Tiago Forte on how to achieve the inbox zero. This is a protocol and strategy that I followed many years ago, and it is still the foundation and basis that I use today in terms of dealing with email for personal life and work life. And it is completely revolutionary. If there's one thing that's sapping our energy and attention at work, it's definitely email. And when you can tame the email beast, you will be able to stop being busy, engaging in those things that just waste time, and truly become a productivity beast in your workplace. So make sure to check that resource down below. So next thing I want to talk about is that you should never work overtime. Whenever I've worked overtime in any company, I found out that it's actually a detriment to my performance. Because many of those times that I was working overtime, I wasn't doing it because of additional effort or input that I wanted to put into the company, but it was actually because I wasn't organizing my time and my energy efficiently throughout the day. So at the end of the day, I didn't feel like I got the important things done, so I would have to stay a bit later and work on those important things to actually show the company that I was achieving something. And if you've been sucked into this toxic hustle culture a bit like I was, there's a bit of ego attached to it as well, because you think that, oh, if I work a little more, they're gonna recognize me more, I'm gonna get more merits, perhaps I'm gonna be promoted faster. All those things definitely enter into your mind when you're working those extra hours. But working those extra hours essentially means that you're probably doing busy work during your day and not actually being productive, because if you were truly productive, those 8 hours that you have for work, you would achieve the things that you need to achieve in the most effective way possible, and then have the time in the evening to be able to restore, have work-life balance, and make your work performance and your execution as sustainable as possible. Because if you keep working overtime for a long and extended period of time, eventually you're going to burn out. Eventually your performance at work is gonna fail. So here's some strategies that I have for avoiding overtime and making sure that the time you have for work is as effective as possible and you're not engaging in busy work. You should prioritize aggressively, plan correctly, and focus on deep work. I think I might say that again. Prioritize aggressively, plan correctly, and focus on deep work. These three pillars are key to avoid working overtime and getting the things done. And also keep in mind that working overtime doesn't necessarily signal to your employer that you're more excited about working in the company and you're just giving more input, but it might signal to your employer that your time management skills, your energy management skills are not great, and if you can't finish your work effectively within your 8 hours, it might signal that you're just disorganized. And not only that, but there's certainly some managers that take advantage of the people who work a little overtime, and then they'll just start sending you more busy work, more busy work, more busy work, and then it'll just be a vicious loop that is really, really hard to get out of, because you become that person that they depend on for the busy work and for working those extra hours and for burning the midnight oil, and whatever your company needs, you're gonna be the first name that pops up. And that is certainly to the detriment of your health and your sustainable productivity. And the last thing I would recommend is to use automation tools and virtual assistants. As we mentioned before, understanding what you're spending your time on is incredibly important to eliminate busy work and focus on productivity. And we mentioned that you should evaluate your tasks and either eliminate them, automate them, or delegate them. These three steps are incredibly important in that order. So let's talk about automation. There are certain automation tools like Zapier and If This Then That will be linked below, where you can sign up and create different automation pathways that can make your life a whole lot easier, especially when it comes to boring, monotonous tasks that you have to do every day. For example, you can automatically sort your email. You can get prioritized to-do lists based on email communications, Slack messages. You can get automatic task updates. You can automatically schedule meetings. You can set up filters for your file management system based on title, content, creation date, type, whatever you want. And basically with these tools, the sky is the limit. They connect to many other apps that your workplace definitely uses, and they allow you to create these shortcuts that will make your life a lot easier. And now moving on to the step of delegation, I think virtual assistants are truly game-changing. It's not something that I've personally used because, well, right now I don't really have the money to be able to spend on a virtual assistant, but as soon as I do, I'm getting a virtual assistant. This is a concept that I first heard about in the book 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, where he discussed the impact of having a virtual assistant for his work and personal life. If there's a particular repetitive or monotonous task at work that you don't want to get done and it's just busy work, as we mentioned, definitely get a virtual assistant and make sure that they do that task and help you out with the burden, because you want to be engaged again in that deep work and those important things that'll move the needle, because email doesn't move the needle, attending meetings doesn't move the needle, file management doesn't move the needle. So virtual assistants can definitely be a big help for those things that you cannot automate. And even though I haven't used virtual assistants in the past, I'm going to leave a few virtual assistant companies like Virtual Employee. There's definitely some in Upwork as well, Bruntwork and Time, etc. I'm gonna link them down below, and if you have the ability to hire a virtual assistant, definitely do it and delegate those things that, again, cannot be eliminated or automated. So we talked about some very practical tips today on how to stop being busy at work and actually become productive. But if you're still feeling a bit unmotivated at work and want to get unstuck, make sure you watch this video on the 4 habits that I followed to rekindle my passion for work. And thanks for watching, and see you there, amigos.